welcome back to another episode of Why I Love BNI, your podcast spotlighting different businesses in different chapters on what they love about being a part of BNI and what they love about having their business be a part of the BNI family. So today, I'm super excited to have my guest Liz with us today. Liz, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
I do appreciate you inviting me here. I'm really excited to spend some time with you today, Macy.
Well, of course. So Liz and I have been connected, I want to say for some time now. We've seen each other on social media. She's always crushing it. I see so many amazing stories that she's posting out there. And I know she's doing great work here in Palm Coast and all the way up in St. Augustine as well. So I'm super excited for her to come on and share some of her expertise. So Liz, why don't you kick us off and just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you're helping people?
In my business, it's Old City Counseling, and I am a licensed psychotherapist. And there I get to work with individuals one-on-one and help them overcome things such as trauma, anxiety, mood disorders. I also work with couples and have very great feedback from the individuals that I work with concerning their growth. And it's just amazing to see the growth over time when I'm working with these individuals. And I feel humbled and honored to hold that position with these folks in their journey. Mhm.
Yeah, that's so special because something as fragile like as our and vulnerable as our mental state and just sharing that with someone, it does take someone very special to be on that other side of the
Oh, thank
couch,
you.
I think. Yeah, of course. And I know that so many people have said they just loved, being with you and talking with you. And I enjoy talking with you as well, even just as a business professional standpoint. What got you into this field? What pulled you in?
Well, I think specifically just the psychology behind the human experience. I've always been curious as a young child growing up in Brooklyn, New York. So it was a very different time back then. And I always had a curiosity
Mm.
for just learning about the human and how we operate and why we do what we do. And the great thing about what I do, Macy, is that I will never tire of learning about the human experience. It's something that I feel that I was just born to do. And I didn't know right away it's something that I wanted to do because
Sure.
thought even in elementary school, as early as that, I thought, I might be an educator or I might be in psychology, is what
Mm,
I thought. And I didn't really put that together until I was already in this field. And I said, oh
right.
gosh, I remember when I was a child, I thought, oh, I wanted to be a teacher, or maybe I wanted to be in psychology. And then what do I get to do today? I think I have an extraordinary opportunity to do both, to be in psychology and to educate people on how they can live their lives better. And also, I think the biggest thing for me is when I see someone actually apply and really understand how they can help themselves, they get to a point where you can just see that they get it. They get it and they know I can help myself. So that little bit of hope helps them grow. It's almost like a foundation and they just kind of springboard off of that. And for
Mm-hmm.
me to see that in vivo in person, it's just like I that is a confirmation that I'm where I need to be. Like my feet are
Right.
planted where I need to be. And it's a passion for me. It's not something that I just do.
Right.
It's a passion. I live it. So when I'm working with individuals, I walk the walk. Like I will
Mm,
never tell an individual to do something that I myself would not try to do. And that's why I
right.
always say, keep going. My social media presence is very much about that, just letting people know, keep going, regardless of what's going on in our lives. We as human beings are so resilient. And I hope that my existence is able to show that to people. And even my trials and tribulations, I've suffered traumas and things like that. And some people, know these. And when they see me and they see that I have come to the other side of that, I can represent hope for some of those people. And that's what, my hope for them is, that they do find some hope for themselves.
I love that. And I really loved what you touched upon, of, giving someone the steps that you see fit for them to start their healing process and them to start actually applying it. I'm sure it's just so special to see people actually invest in themselves. And maybe they don't fully believe in themselves at the first step, but they believe in you and they believe that you want the best for them. And I know that's the case. And then it slowly starts to ramp up into they believe in themselves more and more, and they're able to have that confidence. And I'm sure that's so special to witness. I can only imagine.
Yes. And the great thing is, what I would say is a part of them does believe in themselves for
Right.
just walking through the door, like making the appointment and showing up.
Yeah.
They believe in themselves. And I'm like, if we have that, we can get to the bottom of anything. So as
Right.
long as we have that buy-in, I'm like, I'll take it. Let's run with it. That's how
That's
I
so
see it.
s that's so special. You touched a little bit about your social media presence, and I wanted to make sure I asked this. Can you tell me the story behind, the username Brain-Based Therapist?
So brain-based therapist is just really, and I'll tell you that during COVID is when I made that switch over because I really
Gotcha.
wanted people to know me and what I do and how I approach it. A lot of the times we approach mental health as I'm feeling some type of way and I don't
Mm,
know, how to help myself. They're not able to identify it. So the brain-based way allows us to connect the mind and body and look at how our body works, right? Our nervous system connected to our brain, right? And how a lot of what we experience in our lives are all connected to the body. And if we can connect it to the body, we can have a buy-in. Some people, when they can't see it, they don't believe it. But if we can say, well, here's what's happening, here's what's going on with, your thought process. And I teach them about how our thoughts are related to our behaviors. I teach them how, the mind is something that we cannot place a finger on, right? But the brain is. And I teach them these skills on how they can use, how they can speak our language, how it's connected to our brain and what the signals are that we're giving to ourselves. We're hardwired to survive as humans, and that all stems from our brain, right? We don't
right.
really have to think about that. So when we're living more intentional in our day-to-day
Mm,
lives and pausing, well, we're able to experience life a little differently. I
right.
believe it's like 80% of how we operate is on a subconscious level.
Right.
So when we bring in a more intentional way of living, because now we're aware of what happens when our senses, I like to say that our senses, what we see, taste, touch, and feel, those are, I say, the investigators in our environment, and they're investigating and they're trying to see what's up in our environment. Then they send the signal to our nervous system, which I say nervous system are messengers, and it sends the message to the brain like, oh my gosh, there's a potential threat in our environment. And this is what I teach people. Well, are you really seeing this facts versus feelings?
Mm,
Or, are you creating this as a feeling, right? Are
right.
you creating this environment? Because the brain is not a lie detector. What we tell it, it believes. And I
Right.
teach people, what are you telling your brain? If we're living more in the intentional present moment, we can have, a thumb, an eye on what is it that we're feeding our brain because it just
Right.
doesn't know the difference. And what the job is to turn on the stress response. So there's a bunch of adults walking around with that stress response button, turned on, and they don't know sometimes that it's on, and they also don't know how do I shut it off. And we
Right.
have the capacity to do both. And I help educate them so that they can do this for themselves. When they say teach the man to fish, this is what I do. And in my practice, I help them to gain these skills so they can feel more confident and they can graduate out of therapy and feel good about themselves and live the life that they deserve to live. And most people think, oh, if I go to therapy, it's a lifelong commitment. Mm-mm.
Mm,
Therapy itself is not a lifelong commitment. What is a commitment is you're coming in, you're starting this process. Once you start seeing progress, you graduate, out of therapy. And the whole idea is maintaining it as a lifestyle for you.
Mhm.
that is something that you must do. And that's their personal investment. That's their long-term investment, so that's what I try to teach folks. And when they realize they can do it by their progress, they're feeling more confident and they're encouraged to keep on. And that's really my goal.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you took the time to really explain. I mean, there's so many different misconceptions when it comes to therapy, and the lifelong commitment one is definitely a big one, right? Because no one wants the idea maybe of being stuck in therapy forever. And I'm using the terms that maybe people would think, not the ones that I necessarily believe in. Because, I don't think there's anything wrong, even if you do want to have therapy as a lifelong commitment. There's nothing wrong with, maybe
Mhm.
you lower the frequency or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just being there and having that space to check up on yourself and hold yourself a little bit accountable. What I really wanted to touch on really quick before we switched gears was I loved you were talking about, the stress levels in our body that we're operating on a subconscious level, and even the smallest thing can really trigger that for us.
Mhm.
Like for example, recently I spilled coffee on my desk and I was so annoyed with it. And normally an accurate response is to be mad and start blaming different things, right? Like I know there's been times when things have spilled and you go, well, this family member shouldn't have, I don't know, put talk to me this morning because then I would have spilled the coffee, right? There's different things that we tell ourselves, but I felt very proud. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I was just like, we just go get the tissue. I can still salvage it. I still drank some of my coffee and I cleaned everything up and I went around my day and I made another cup of coffee later today. And I was like, I deserve a pat on the back for that one
Right, right,
because that's the type of consciousness you have to have in yourself to be like, all right, let me just see how I can fix this and what makes sense
right.
for me to keep
Yes,
going with my
yes.
emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went more to the positive, and I'll tell you real quick because we could be here all day talking about this. So
Sure.
naturally, as humans, we're hardwired to see the negative, and a lot of people do not see that. But why are we hardwired to see the negative? Well, because of our stress response. We're hardwired to
Right.
survive. So we're always looking, right? Our little investigators are always looking for what are the potential threats in my environment. So once we are aware of that, right, we have the awareness. Now we can work with what we know we have. Oh, this
Definitely.
is just my little investigators trying to see if I'm okay. But you establish safety first. I established safety first. I'm fine. It was a cup of coffee. Now be more solution focused. And it sounds like
Exactly.
you did that in a positive way and you have a positive outcome. So it doesn't have to ruin your day, which I think is a very off the cuff thing for people to say. They're that's a non-intentional way to respond to that.
Sure.
It would be better to say, oh, that was a moment and I'm going to get this tissue, I'm going to clean it up and get another cup of coffee. Super
Right.
simple. But
Yeah.
sometimes we complicate things because of that 80% of subconsciously how we're kind of floundering.
Yeah, and you mentioned that our brains are not lie detectors. So I for the past few years, my dad has been very like, if I say something and it sounds like, like, oh, if kind of thing, or what if this happens, or stuff like that. My dad goes, all right, let's slow down. Do you want that to happen? And I go, well, no. Okay, then don't say that out loud. Don't think it. Stop yourself as much as possible
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then rewire that. But like, yeah, you're totally right. We could talk about this for at least another 30,000 hours. So just switching gears just a little bit. I'd love to hear, you've been in BNI for quite some time now, and you're one of those people,
Hmm.
you're a huge champion of the giver's gain and of BNI. So I'd love to hear, do you have any BNI success stories that you'd love to share with people?
Well, I do like to talk about my specific story because
Mm-hmm.
I think most people can resonate with that.
Sure.
Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, says networking is more about farming than it is about hunting, right? It's about cultivating relationships. Right there, he talks about it. That quote truly resonates with me now. But over a decade ago, when I was first invited to a BNI meeting, I didn't immediately see the value of planting those seeds. So honestly, I was just so focused on how early the meetings were I almost let that opportunity pass me by.
Yeah.
And at that time, I really couldn't see the bigger picture of what it had to offer me and my business. But it took me some time to shift that mindset because that's what it is. And I realized the immense potential of being part of this incredible network that I today affectionately call my family. And it's over 10 years now for me. And once I really made that decision to join, I knew it had to be all or nothing. The way I operate, I'm someone who takes my commitments very seriously. If I was going to do this, it was going to be I'm going to show up and, be fully engaged. And then once I started understanding the BNI way and how the relationships and referrals work, the personal growth that came with being part of BNI, my business growth, it became more valuable than I could have imagined at the time. And today, my brand as the brain-based therapist, I've come to really appreciate the deeper psychology behind BNI and their
Oh,
concept of giver's gain, like you mentioned. It aligns very beautifully with how our brains are wired for connection and trust. Right. So it's really fascinating to me how these meetings not only, build that, but also reinforce that community. And that's, as what I do, I need that community. I hold myself accountable with this community. And looking back, joining BNI was one of the best decisions I've made for both my professional and my personal growth. I have a lot of friends that I have made personally within the group, and I've, made peace with those early mornings.
the early mornings are decently thing are what am I even saying? Like, yeah, a lot of people get hung up on. I mean, I know mine is what I have to be there by 7:30 in the morning. I'm sure yours is not too different. I
Yeah.
know I went to sub at one in Port Orange, and they start
Hmm.
at 7:30, which means I have to be
Yeah.
there at 7, and I'm 45 minutes away from Port Orange. So I told them, I was
Yes.
like, I love subbing for you guys, but it's gotta stop.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
But I've been able to
It's
make so many great connections through that Port Orange BNI, through my BNI, through going to other BNIs at different times. So yeah, you're totally right. It's so I love the psychology that you mentioned behind that giver's gain.
It really is that psychology, that mindset, understanding that puts everything into perspective. This is a
Yeah,
business. We're each invested in this business and
right.
BNI for our business. So it works so beautifully. And I do. Ours starts at 7:30, but I'm the first one there every Thursday. You can
Perfect.
ask any. I'm the first one there every week. I just really look forward to that, especially with the type of work I do, where it's very quiet and soothing. This is like my rock concert of the week. I'm like, yes, I get to hang out and connect with my people.
Yeah, and I know so many amazing people from your chapter, so I'm sure I haven't been able to go to one of your meetings because you guys are at the same time as mine. But
Hmm.
I'll have to make out the trip one day because I know you guys, I'm sure, just have a fun time, just always
We
kicking
do.
back and enjoying with each other. So, Liz, thank you so much for taking the time coming on here. I mean, you gave so much value and so much education when it comes to everything that you're doing as well as BNI. So, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I appreciate the offer to come on and spend
Nice.
some time with you and connect people with BNI. And hopefully,
Hmm.
I'll encourage them to find a meeting and join and take their business to the next level. This is definitely something that can help any level of business that you're in. So I definitely
Definitely.
recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And to everyone watching, I really appreciate you as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye.